retinitis pigmentosa, which is a big fancy word for tunnel vision. So how I see is like toilet paper rolls on my eyes. So if you put like your hands by your eyes and make circles, that's kind of how I see. So I don't have any peripheral vision. I also have difficulty seeing in dim light, and I also have night blindness. And I have had this eye condition for all of my life. I was diagnosed when I was 2, and as a kid, it didn't really bother me that much. I was raised on a dairy farm in Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin, and I spent most of my time outside. And that's where I really fell in love with being outdoors. And that's kind of how I have, been led to my current degree in environmental education. And Fraser has really helped me grow and develop as a person. When I was a kid, I was really, really shy, and I didn't really want to ask for help from my teachers or my friends to see things. But it took me some time just to like accept that I had a disability and accept that I needed to ask for help. And ever since then, I've been using Fraser and using my white cane and going to leader dogs for the blind with their summer camp and the O&M training and getting Fraser. All of that has really helped me become the person I am today. So some fun facts about me: I used to be a radio DJ at the last college that I attended. I used to be a journalism major there. So I had my own radio show for a year. I've also written like as a staff writer for several newspapers on campus. So the campus that I am currently on, UW Stevens Point, I've written for the Pointer, and then UW Whitewater, which I used to go to, I've written for the Royal Purple. 2 years ago, Fraser and I went to Europe with one of my classes where we learned about how Germany and Poland manage their natural resources, so how they take care of their forests and their rivers. And yeah, I love being outside. Fraser is my all-terrain pup, so he really allows me to experience the outdoors and teach people about the outdoors. And yeah, that's a little bit about me. So I think I'm ready for some questions.
Okay, again, if you type your questions into the chat box at the bottom of the screen, well, when you click on it, the chat box will open up. Type your questions into there. But I have a few that were already sent in prior to this. I'm going to guess this was from one of our younger viewers here. Is how are you able to drive to get everywhere if you can't see?
Well, I am not able to drive. It's illegal for me to drive, so I do not really want to be breaking the law. So to get to place, I depend on my friends to drive me or my parents. I also depend on public transportation, so I take buses to places, or I just walk. If the weather is nice, I love going for walks, and that's how I get from place to place. And Fraser does not know how to drive, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. So I do have a question from Connor, and he would like to know if you have ever played any sports.
I have played when I was in elementary school and I was in regular gym class. I would play sports like baseball and basketball, but I never really played them like on a team. It was just in my class. And then when I went to a camp for people who are blind and visually impaired at the Wisconsin School for Blind and Visually Impaired, I played goalball, which is a sport that is adapted for people who are blind and visually impaired, and that involves everybody being blindfolded and getting on their hands and knees and defending their goal from a ball that has bells in it. And that's probably one of my favorite sports to play. So, because I'm really good at it.
Okay, I have another question here, is from Kim. It's, do you take Fraser on hikes in the woods, and how does he do with all of the different smells that are out there?
I do take Fraser for hikes in the woods, and he is really good with not paying attention to those smells or the squirrels. He is a very hard worker, and likes to, he likes to make sure that I'm safe, and he will just not be distracted by squirrels or chipmunks or birds or smells. He guides me around routes that might be in the trail or rocks. He makes sure that I take the safest route. So yeah, I always take him on hikes.
That's good. Here's another question that kind of goes along that same line. What is the hardest task you've ever asked Fraser to perform?
I think the hardest task, and it's mainly because it was a very physical, like job to do, was climb up a mountain in Poland with me. So we climbed and it wasn't like, vertical climbing. It was just hiking up a steep hill pretty much. But we climbed up a mountain at the Gorsay National Park, and that was probably one of the hardest. And actually, now that I think about it too, there was another time in Poland when we were hiking up to hiking up a mountain, and it was just downpouring, and our guide decided to take us off trail. So Fraser had to follow my classmates, off trail, in being sopping wet in pouring down rain. So I think that was probably the hardest, most difficult thing that I've had him do. But he got a lot of treats afterwards, and he got sleep a lot afterwards. So yeah, definitely hiking up those mountains, especially when the weather wasn't the best, was probably the most challenging thing I've had him do.
Fantastic. Here's a question more about you. And what is your biggest challenge when you're at work?
I think my biggest challenge is, well, right now, so I'm currently looking for work, and right now my biggest challenge is just kind of, people have done research on me before they interview me, and they find out that I am visually impaired because I have written blogs for my university talking about life with a guide dog. And it's very like publicly known that I am visually impaired, and I have a guide dog because of everything I've done for leader dogs. So if you Google me, I have, all these links that pretty much say I'm visually impaired or have a guide dog. And so people will ask me in interviews, like, how do you think your visual impairment is going to affect you, and things like that. So I have to really kind of sell myself and tell them, I have this challenge, but I'm willing to, I'm hoping that you're able to adapt, and I can, be the best employee possible. So just having to kind of, I guess, break that stereotype is a hard thing for me with work.
Okay. Did you have Fraser while you were in high school? And if so, how did that work out for you?
So I got Fraser when I was going into my senior year of high school, and usually service dog schools like Leader Dogs for the Blind do not give people who are under the age of 17 service dogs or guide dogs. But I was fortunate enough because I went to a small rural school where my graduating class was 90. Like my entire high school was 400 kids. And so I really grew up with everybody that was in my high school, and they knew that I was visually impaired, and they were really welcoming to the idea of having me have a guide dog. And so a leader dog representative came out, and then some people in my community who raise leader dogs, who have had leader dogs before as like a client, they visited my school, and they talked to my entire high school about how to behave around a leader dog, and why it's important not to distract him. And so that really helped with everybody just knowing what to do with Fraser, and not get in his way of working. And so when I got Fraser, and I was getting ready for my senior year of high school, the same leader dog representative came back out and he taught me how to train Fraser to my schedule. And so Fraser learned where my locker was. He learned where all my classrooms were. He knew where the lunchroom was, where the front door, the back door, the bathrooms were. He learned all these things. And he seriously kind of knew my schedule better than I did sometimes. Like, he was absolutely incredible in just getting into a routine. He would get up before the bell would ring, so he was ready to go for the next class. And it was really good. Like, I'm really fortunate that I was able to get Fraser as a senior in high school, because I was able to get that bond with him before moving away from my family and my friends to go to college. And I was also fortunate enough because my classmates were very accepting and very understanding and didn't get in the way of Fraser working. They were very respectful of him.
Okay. Let me see what else we have here. How did you feel the first time you met Fraser?
Oh my gosh, I was an emotional wreck. I was so, it really just felt like a dream come true. Like, I remember when Jill told me that I was getting Fraser, I just broke down in tears and I hugged her and I'm like, I'm getting a guide dog. I'm getting a guide dog. And when I first met him, he just barreled right into me and was licking my face, was drooling all over me. And I just knew he was the one. And the first walk that I had with Fraser, I mean, we just fell into a perfect pace. Like, we just walked so perfectly together. So I knew he was the one when I first met him.
And how did you first get involved with Leader Dog?
So I got involved with Leader Dog by first attending their summer experience camp when I was 16. One of my vision teachers, she taught me orientation and mobility, or how to use a white cane in my local community. And she saw a flyer for the summer camp that Leader Dog has. And she was trying to get me to go, but I was stubborn at the time. I didn't want to go to a camp in a different state for a week with people I didn't know. So I was super stubborn at first and I did not want to go. But then she introduced me to a puppy raiser as well as a Leader Dog client, and I got to talk to them. I got to see what Leader Dog does and what a Leader Dog can do for a visually impaired person like myself. And I knew I had to do it. So I went to camp and I had one of the best weeks of my life.
And how long is camp?
Camp is a week long, and I think it's usually in late June, maybe.
Yep, correct. Let me see. We had someone else who has a camp question. Can you tell a little bit about what you did at Summer Experience Camp? And did you, and what did you find most impactful or like the best about camp?
So I know that it's changed since I've went, because I went in 2013, I think. Yeah, 2013 was my first year. And so what we did were we were given a like GPS. At the time it was the captain. And then the following year that I went, it was the trekker. And now I think they give the vector reader. And so these GPSs are really easy to use, and they're able to help blind and visually impaired people just like walk and kind of know where they're going. So like they have the ability to like put in landmarks, to put in routes. And so we were able to learn how to use that GPS unit. And also we were able to learn how to use our white cane in different environments, because a lot of us came from all around the country. Some of us were from cities, some of us were from rural communities. And so that experience gave us opportunities to gain experience in different environments that we might not have been used to. And we also got to do some fun things too. We went zip lining, we went canoeing, we went fishing, we made tie-dye t-shirts, and my favorite day, and I think the most impactful part of that camp, was Dog Day, when we actually got to be partnered with a dog for a half of a day, and this dog was going to be going to one of the next classes of clients. And so we were partnered with this dog and were able to go for a walk with it at a local park using the harness. And then also we were able to ask the guide dog instructors about, life with a leader dog, how to get a leader dog. So I think that was definitely the one most impactful thing that camp did for me. And another thing too is, it gave me the opportunity to meet so many amazing people and create a support system of other people that know how it is to be a young adult who's blind or visually impaired. And that just made me feel less alone. And I'm still really good friends with those people today.
Fantastic. What does Fraser get to do for fun?
Well, Fraser just got a little sister a few weeks ago. So my boyfriend just adopted a English black lab, and he's been very busy with playing with her. She loves to nibble his ears and tails, but he's also a fan of just playing with her. So that's been keeping him really busy. And Fraser also goes on walks off harness too. So he'll go on hikes off harness and be able to smell trees, watch birds, watch squirrels, play with sticks. And he's a very spoiled dog and has a lot of toys. And he loves to play with those toys as well. So those are the things that he gets to do for fun.
Okay, I have a question is, what will happen to Fraser when he gets too old to work?
When Fraser decides to retire, I plan to keep him as a pet, and he gets to live his retirement with me. And hopefully he doesn't get too jealous of my next guide dog.
Okay. Oh, here's a very, very, very important question. Who cleans up after Fraser when he parks?
I do all the time.
Do you want to explain to everyone what parking is?
Yeah, so parking
Does it know?
so parking is when you take the dog out to go to relieve itself, and they teach us how to tell when our dog is either going number one or number two, and how to pick up number two when the dog does go number two. So yeah, I always clean up after Fraser, and I'm okay with that. Especially in the winter, it's a nice hand warmer.
Wow, that's really finding a silver lining right there. Okay, let me scroll through these 1 second. You spoke a little bit earlier about looking for a job, and have there been any times when you feel discriminated against in a job interview or any other type of work or school related situation?
Um, not offhand. Usually I've had employers and my professors, they're very understanding of my situation, and I am very much of an advocate for myself, and I know what I need to succeed. And so I can't think offhand of, discrimination that I've gotten in either school or work related yet. But as I said, like right now with applying to jobs and people being able to see that I do have a disability, that's the one thing that is challenging, because I have had another friend before who she is also in environmental education, and she has a physical disability, and it was very hard for her to find a job because she wasn't able to walk long distances, but she was able to find a job at her dream location. So I'm hoping that I find a job that accommodates who I am.
Well, actually, that was one of the questions. What would be your dream job after graduation? And that's
So,
from Missy.
so my dream job would be writing for the National Geographic, but that's a pretty big dream. So my realistic dream is to work at a nature center or a park or a camp in the Pacific Northwest, so in Washington or Oregon. And I would really love to help people who have disabilities to get outdoors and experience the outdoors. That's really one of my big goals and one of my dreams.
Awesome. Um, Here's another question. What would you say to someone who is losing their vision and hesitant to take any training or start the process?
Um, well, I would say that there are support groups on Facebook that are very helpful. I'm part of several retinitis pigmentosa support groups, and seeing people go through situations like that where you're losing your sight, but you haven't gone through training yet or anything, like that's just reassuring to know that other people are out there, because you can get trapped in that feeling of being the only person that is dealing with this challenge, but there are so many other people out there. So I think just connecting with people who have visual impairments or who are losing sight, who are blind, that's the most helpful thing that I can think of.
Great. Questions just keep rolling in here. What has been your biggest discovery or surprise about living or working with a leader dog?
Um, Honestly, Fraser surprises me every day. Like, he is so unbelievably intelligent. Like, I am so impressed about how intelligent he is. So for example, we went for a walk a few days ago, and we got to a part of a sidewalk that just ended. And we had just passed another um, connecting sidewalk that led to a crosswalk. And without me even saying anything, he just turned around and brought me right to that place. And he hadn't worked for maybe a week or so. And just that he's still able to be that alert and be that attentive and intelligent, it's just so incredible. And he just remembers my routine too. So like if we walked past the local food co-op, which I worked at before this whole COVID-19 thing started, he would start like leading me towards the ramp. Without me even saying, because he thinks we're going to go there. So him just remembering those things like is just so incredible. Like I feel if I would have brought him back to the old campus that we went to, UW Whitewater, I feel like he would have been able to find all the buildings and all the classes that we used to take, because he has a really good memory.
Okay, now that you brought up COVID-19 and what your discussion was, we did have a question earlier from Mike, and he asked, how is the isolation that we're all experiencing now with stay at home compared to the isolation you may have felt prior to coming to Leader Dog?
So prior to coming to Leader Dog, I really wasn't that independent, and I think it's because I was still a high school student. I was still living with my parents, and I just wasn't living on my own. So I really kind of kept myself busy with, my schoolwork and hanging out with friends and things like that. But I guess now that I'm in a stay-at-home isolation, I don't know. I think what I've learned is just keeping myself busy is very important, and I I hope that kind of answers that question, because like I really didn't feel like I was that isolated when I was younger, just because I was able to depend on my parents. Hey, what's up, Rach? Because I was able to depend on my parents. Sit. um, for things, and that's just because I was living with them. But now that I've had Frazier, you know, I couldn't imagine the stay at home without him because he is able to allow me to still get out um, and still be independent. But there is also, you know, a fear. So I guess that kind of correlates because when I was, I don't know, learning to be learning to become independent, I feared going on the bus or I feared going in the grocery store or you know, the store. And now with COVID-19, that fear has come back just because it's like the buses here are still running. I just don't want to take the buses because I don't want to catch COVID-19. Grocery stores are still open, but it's still nerve wracking to go in there because who knows who has COVID-19. So I think that's a correlation. I hope that all kind of came together. I just like you know, rambled on.
Oh, nope, nope, that worked out well.
Okay, good. Yeah, I had to like think out loud there for a second.
Kind of hard to be put on the spot sometimes. Like this question puts you on the spot a little bit. And do you have a boyfriend? And does Frazier like him if you do?
I do have a boyfriend. I've been dating my boyfriend for 2 years. His name is Jason. And fun fact, we actually share the same exact birthday, October 18th, 1996. And Frazier adores him. He absolutely loves Jason. And it might be because sometimes Jason sneaks him some cheese or some snacks from the kitchen. But as I said earlier, my boyfriend just got a puppy, and this morning, like Frazier was just getting a little jealous that Jason was giving the puppy all this attention. So he definitely loves attention and loves my boyfriend. I think he's glad to have some more testosterone in his life.
Um, Here's a question from me. When you traveled to Europe, did you get a lot of acceptance of having Frazier with you? Was it any different from traveling with him in the United States?
Well, fortunately, my professors, both at UW Stevens Point as well as who were teaching us in Germany and Poland, they were very helpful with getting the word out to the places that we were visiting about what Frazier does and what Frazier is. And I came prepared with all of his documentation, his letter that Leader Dog wrote, like describing that he's a service dog and he's allowed in public places, things like that. But there were some particular areas in like Krakow, Poland, that just did not allow me to go with my class. So for example, underground Krakow, my class was able to go, but because I had Frazier and, you know, my Polish professors were trying to explain to the, like, the guard that he was a service dog, all this stuff, I wasn't able to go in because they're not used to service dogs like that. I don't even know if Poland has any sort of service dog schools. So just going to a different country that really isn't as developed or have as many rights for people with disabilities was challenging, but I was still able to get most out of my experience and inspire a lot of people too. A lot of people were so amazed that a blind girl with her dog was able to like walk up a mountain. So that was really nice to show people who don't get that exposure to see that. So yeah.
We have two questions here from Duke. And the first one is, does Frazier get cold walking in the winter in Wisconsin?
It really depends on the day. For the most part, no. But if it is a little chilly, I do have a jacket for him that he wears, and I also have boots that protect his paws from the cold, the ice, and the salt. And when it's like -20, -30, I really try to reduce the amount of time he's outside. And Yeah, so he has quite a thick coat, and he's a tough boy. So he actually loves the snow. He loves winter because he loves to play in the snow. So I think he's sad to see the warm weather coming.
And Duke's second question, is it hard to get through a crowd with a leader dog?
um, it is. It definitely is because people really don't look down on the ground to see Fraser. And when they do, they just see the dog. They don't see his sign. So then they distract him or they coo at him or they do something like that. So, I just have to be vocal and let them know, like, hey, I'm visually impaired. I'm blind. I have my guide dog with me. Get out of my way, kind of thing. So it is challenging to get through a crowd, but Fraser is incredible at maneuvering crowds. And yeah.
Okay. Do you keep in touch with Fraser's puppy raiser?
Yes, I do actually. The awesome thing is that Fraser's puppy raiser is actually from Wisconsin, and she lives about an hour away from where I am right now. And we are in contact pretty frequently. We're friends on Facebook. We talk on Facebook. She actually dog sat Fraser a few months ago when I was at a wedding. And for the weekend. And yeah, I keep her updated with Fraser. And there's also another local puppy raiser who is able to. She lives in Stevens Point, where I live, and she is able to drive me to the airports whenever I have speaking engagements with leader dogs, or she's able to drive me places whenever I can't find a ride. So I'm really fortunate that I have a group of leader dog puppy raisers that are in Wisconsin, both in central Wisconsin as well as where I'm from in northeastern Wisconsin.
Great. You mentioned earlier that when you went to Poland, so obviously Fraser has been on an airplane, but where does he sit, and is it easy to get on and off the plane with him?
So whenever I fly with Fraser, I usually board first. I'm usually pre-boarding, so I board before everybody else does. And the flight attendant usually helps me to my seats. And before I even am at the airport, I make sure that my seat is a bulkhead seat, so it has more space by my legs, and that's where Fraser lays, is right by my legs in that bulkhead area. And he's, been on flights for 9 hours. That was how long it took us to get from America to Europe. And he is really good on flights. He just passes out, he just sleeps, and doesn't really budge that much.
Okay, so just a little bit of a follow-up question, and actually this will be the last question that we have, is did you say negative 30 degrees? Is that cold in Wisconsin?
Yeah, it does. It's gotten to like negative 50 degrees, and that was last year during our polar vortex. But fortunately, this past winter wasn't as bad as the year prior. So, yeah, it gets a little chilly here, but I'm really happy that it's starting to warm up.
Okay. As I mentioned, that was the last question we have for Shannon. I am trying to get some things going here. Oh, hi there. That was our last question from Shannon. And if you would like to see a video of Shannon and Fraser working on the campus at school, just go to YouTube. In the search bar, type in Shannon Columb. It's COLUMB, and that will pull up the video on YouTube. I would ask everybody, let's give Shannon a big round of applause for doing this for us today.
Thank you.
Shannon, hands are clapping everywhere.
Well, I was very happy that you invited me to do this.
So, oh, we are so happy you are here.